So if anybody knows me and Caleb, I feel like this is like the biggest torment. Me doing anything in 20 minutes for this topic is pretty much impossible. So just a little background on me. That's my wife. We have 3 amazing kids. Yeah, she deserves a big round of applause because my life is like, she puts up a lot of stuff for me. So here's the deal with me. I wasn't gonna go here, but I feel kind of called to do this. My background, a lot of people ask me, and Caleb even said it yesterday, he's like, Chris just like loves to bash IUL. I don't love to bash IUL, just to make it like really, really clear. My thing is, it's just very personal to me. So I was the head of business development for one of the top IUL companies in the country. And the longer I was there, just to keep the story really fast, the more disenchanted with the product I became. The more I learned about it, the more I realized like, whoa, this isn't what I thought it was. And so to me, it's really personal because when I left them, they sued me. And it was a 2-year lawsuit. At the end of it, I had to voluntarily give up my license because they threatened me with another lawsuit. And so it was either stop making content and become a slave to the system, or give up my license and stick it to the man. And that's what I did. And so I gave up my license. I launched a marketing agency. When I first launched Life 180, my wife was doing all of our marketing. We got in a car accident. She got a traumatic brain injury. It forced me into the marketing game. I fell in love with it. So I launched a marketing agency. It bridged the gap till COVID. COVID happened. I lost all my marketing business, and it threw me full-fledged back into the life insurance space. And that is, I guess, how we have gotten to the point where we are now. We have an IMO now. A couple of my business partners back here, Dan, Julian, Daniel's over here. He's on the group. But it's just been a blessing, and it's been so awesome to be back into that space. But I have a huge passion for this topic because I think IUL is the most misrepresented, misunderstood product, not just in the insurance space, but the entire history of the financial markets. And so I'm gonna try to keep this really clear. I'm gonna probably touch on 20 topics that I wanna go down rabbit holes, and if you've watched my content, you know that's why every video I do is 40 minutes long. So if everybody doesn't know, let me give a brief history. IUL was started in 1997. So think about it, like I graduated high school like the year after IUL was even created. So everybody that kind of talks about how IUL is this amazing product, you know, it didn't even gain any market traction until 2009. Like not even a significant amount of sales to even quantify. Of course, that came after 2008. The conversation around IUL about upside potential, downside protection due to market participation is really what got it going, right? So it's grown to be the #1 competitor of whole life at this point in time. Back at that point in time, and this is gonna be really, really important to understand why the market is kind of shifting the way that it is now. But in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, actually in 2009 when I first joined the business, there were 9 companies selling IUL. By the time I left the company, that shall not be named, in 2014, there were 15 companies selling, and now there's over 70. So think about like that. And that is very relevant as I go through this, because on top of all the market situations, they're kind of creating their own problem in a lot of different ways. So this is just a little bit of the history of the regulation of IUL when it comes to, not all of it, but just a couple of the really important components. So from 97 to 2015, I remember when I first got in the business, we were illustrating IULs at like 9.8% assumed rates, and they told us that that was conservative. You could illustrate 4% positive arbitrage on policy loans. And it was like, that's why I call it the Wild Wild West, because it caused so many problems. 2015, Regulation AG 49 was created. That put in a lot of things in the regulations that reined it in. You could only illustrate 50 basis points of positive arbitrage. A lot of things went in, but what happened was, this is why I always say, life insurance companies, I think, let me put it this way. I can't criticize anybody who's like, oh, IUL is amazing, because I was that guy once upon a time. So I get it, I totally understand. people that don't know what they don't know, and they love it. And listen, if it's really sexy on paper. My wife tells me never to say life insurance is sexy, but if you look at an IUL illustration, and you don't understand it, it's damn attractive, right? Like it's good looking stuff. If it worked that way, I'd own a ton of it, but it doesn't. And so, it doesn't. And so here's the deal. The companies, what happens is Regulation AG 49 comes out. So companies go, oh, well, that's going to screw up our whole regulation scheme illustration stuff that we're doing. So let's come up with multipliers, because that's a way to get around the new regulations. So then Regulation AG 49A comes out in 2020, and that screws up the multipliers and other things that happen that they used as tools to inject more risk, but make it look really good on illustrations. And they came up with no-cap indexes and engineered indexes to get away from all of the new rules with AG 49A. And now, May of 2023, just a couple months ago, AG 49B came out, and check this out. They've already come up with ways around it. And so it's like, these companies it's like for a top-down problem. It's the companies that are getting around it, and it's all an illustration war, and they're not really educating the field on this. So that's why I say insurance companies are the main problem. So I want everybody for a second to think like an entrepreneur. Raise your hand if you identify as being either an entrepreneur, a business owner, real estate investor, something of that nature. Okay, most of the room. So I want to use a little common sense here. I want to run you through a little role play. You can read this a little bit. I'll speak to it a little bit. So you have a couple options. Think about it this way for a business opportunity. Let's say somebody wants to start a business with you. You have two options on business partners. One business partner comes to you and says, hey, listen, I've got a business opportunity. It's got a lot of upside to it. I know my track record hasn't been so good as a business owner, but look at all the upside. And so I want you to invest in my business and put a bunch of money into this business with me. We're going to be partners on it. But as soon as you sign on the dotted line for the business contract with me, you lose all rights and all control about what happens in this business. I get to say what happens, and you get no control over the results. Conversely, another person approaches you with a similar business opportunity, and that person says, hey, listen, this business opportunity may not have quite as high of an upside potential as the business guy that you're talking to right next door. But I promise you that when you put your money into the business with me, as soon as you sign on the dotted line, all of the responsibilities in this business are going to go towards making sure that you're made good and whole, right? This is the difference. Who would pick the first one? Who would pick the second one? Okay. This is the difference with IUL and whole life. It is that simple. Like using common sense, it is that simple. So just to prove it, I created a thing. Raise your hands here if you've heard of the IUL challenge that I created. Okay. So about a year, maybe 14 months ago, I created this thing called the IUL challenge. I did this because I got so sick of all the trolls online talking about how IUL is so amazing. And I'm like, dude, you've been in the in the business for like 3 years. Like, come to me once you have a little experience. Like, once you've done 4 or 5 annual reviews and you've seen how these things have actually performed and so on and so forth, well, let's have a conversation. So just to give you a little background on the IUL challenge, the terms of it are very simple. This is a product that's sold on upside potential, downside protection due to market participation. So anybody here want to argue we just came through the best bull run in the history of mankind? Like literally, ever? Okay? So these are sold on upside potential. All I'm asking is the policy to be 10 years old, so right at the beginning of the bull run. So 10 years old, show me the original illustration, show me a current in-force illustration. It's got to be out of surrender because that's important, right? Fair enough with IUL. And it's just got to match it. I'm not even saying beat it based on how much the market outperformed historical averages or what you illustrated it by, right? I'm just saying match it. Not one person has been able to do this. Not one. Over 1 million views on all the social media channels. Not one person has been able to do it. Like, it's disgusting to me. So, I mean, it really, to me, like seriously, it's disgusting. And so here, and I got to call out the elephant in the room because everybody's like, Chris, I could do the same with the whole life. I could do a whole life challenge. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Let's talk about that. So if everybody understands how it works, we've been living in a decreasing interest rate environment, which has led to a decreasing dividend rate environment. Fair enough. And so with that, yeah, we could say, well, whole life hasn't performed as well either. But we're not selling whole life based on upside potential, right? We're selling it as a savings alternative, not an investment alternative. And that is the biggest problem. And there's a lot more problems, but that to me is the biggest misrepresentation. So I've talked about that a couple times. So I think this is a big misunderstanding of how IUL works, in a sense, is that people think that index performance, market performance, has anything to do with the IUL. Raise your hand if you think that the index performance has really anything to do with how the IUL performs. Nobody believes that? Okay. You all smart people, I guess. That's good. So I'm going to just walk through how this works really quickly. So let's talk about, everybody's watched my videos, I guess. But so here's the deal. I just want to walk through the flow of money. This is the same with every company in simplicity here. So you pay a premium. The money goes into the general fund. The general fund creates a return. Let's call it 4% right now. It's going up a little bit probably, but historically over the last 4 or 5 years, 4% is a good number. It creates the options budget with that 4%, right? Oh, what did I do? Let's assume that there's a $10,000 cash value balance that creates a $400 option budget. You go and purchase the options with this $400. So if you get the option, they create the cap rate based on that and then the options cost. So based on what your options budget is and options costs are, that's how they create the cap rates, par rates, spread charges, all the things that go in. Now I'm breaking this down really, really simply, but it really, if you understand that, this is just a UL. Does everybody think UL is a good product? No? It's like one of the greatest failed products in the history of our business. More people got massacred in the 80s and 90s with UL than any other product. Do you know what an IUL is when you put it into the fixed rate strategy? It's a UL. That's it. That's it. An IUL is like putting lipstick on a pig. It's what it is, because UL is just an atrocity of a product. Don't sugarcoat. It is what it is. Listen, it's just the results. Yes.
But does it help us whole life policyholders when people buy IUL to make the company more profitable?
It does. Yeah. But the thing is, like, a lot of the companies that we buy whole life from don't even sell IUL. Some do. Like Penn sells an IUL product, and IUL is like one of the greatest profit centers for a company. Period. And it is what it is. And I'm going to get into that. I just got ahead of myself there. What was I covering here? Oh, by the way, I did this at like 4 a.m. this morning. I had a completely different presentation. I woke up and I'm like, I got to do something different because I just wanted it. So like, here's the deal. The last IUL has been bailed out effectively. Bobby Samuelson uses this phrase. IUL has been bailed out by the greatest bull run in history. It would be so much worse than it is right now, and it's not even good. Nobody has been able to win the IUL challenge, even in the greatest bull run of all time. It's been bailed out by the greatest bull run, and it's going to get really ugly really soon. And for anybody that runs whole life organizations that's looking to recruit people, there's going to be a windfall of people that are going to be looking for help. The low interest rate environment, I don't even remember why I put that there. So, here's the deal. I want to get to a point because I'm going to run out of time. IULs, when you sign on the dotted line, we talked about all the variables that can change, right? And these are all the variables that can change in an IUL that the insurance company has complete control of, okay? So these are the things that are the most important that will have the greatest impact on the performance. And all right, if you're like me, when I sell somebody a whole life policy, or one of the reasons I'm a big believer in whole life is because I believe that control is one of the most important attributes that we look for where we put our money. Is that fair enough? Fair. Anybody disagree with me? Okay. So when you put your money in an IUL, you give up control of your money. And so you basically, and the thing that bugs me about it is people are like, that's a great alternative to a 401k because you're getting your money out of the government's hands. Well, yeah, you're just putting it in the insurance company's hands. And they've already proven that they really don't care about taking your money. If you don't believe me, go back and look at the UL from the 80s and 90s. It's just the first generation of this, period, right? So I always say, use common sense. Common sense, Brendan Burchard, anybody know Brendan Burchard? Brendan Burchard always says common sense is very seldom common practice. And IUL is a great example of that, in my opinion. And so in 2022, the average rate of general fund return for a life insurance company is 4.5%. So if all these IULs are conservatively run at 6.4%, which is the average IUL illustration rate run at this point in time, how is an insurance company going to get you effectively, what is the percentage? It's like 40% higher returns than they're able to get for their own general fund. If it was that good and they could do that for you, right? Let's just think about this commonsensically. If they could do that for you after insurance charges, admin cost, all the fees that go along with it, why would they not be doing this for themselves in the general funds? Do you think they enjoy getting 4.5% right now in this market? No. If they could do it for you, they would be doing it for themselves. This is all smoke and mirrors. Furthermore, I didn't put this on here, but now I'm going here. If you look at an IUL, that company has a corresponding like fixed indexed annuity, right? Every one of them does. You want to really see what the IUL cap rate should be or what the IUL return should be? Go look at the corresponding annuity. It's always lower. It's always lower. Why? Because they don't have the ability to inject surrender charges quite to the same level. They have to be able to meet their guarantees right out of the gate in case you annuitize immediately. And so they have to actually, have it set at a number that's reasonable, that they can back up, that they can, execute behind, right? So that is a big deal, like to me. And so I already said that. So there's two myths that I want to bust before we get into the panel, and then I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions, a lot of fun, a lot of comments. The biggest thing agents say is IUL is cheaper. Anybody ever heard that? IUL is a cheaper form of cash value life insurance than whole life, right? Anybody here believe that? Probably don't dare to raise your hand. So this is an example I saw as a big influencer on YouTube. Person sent me this illustration. You can see 18 years old, $164,000 over 10 years. The idea was fund this for 10 years. You don't have to worry about funding it anymore. You could take, I think he started taking income at 54. So here's the deal. During this period of time, yes, IUL is cheaper. But then we go to the next slide and we go out to 97 years old. You could see he took income. I didn't show the income part of it, but I'll just tell you. He started taking about $77,000 a year of income, okay? That led to loan charges, okay? And that also, there's a couple parts in here, and I'll show it up later when we're on the panel if you guys want to see it. But check this out. Rider charges, total cost. He put $164,000 into this policy. $946,000 is his total fees in this policy. This, by the way, is the Allianz Pro Plus, the most popular IUL in the industry right now. It's also the highest commission paid IUL in the industry right now. I wonder why, right? This is David McKnight, by the way, who called me out, who's a coward and he won't debate me. This is his favorite product, okay? And so $946,000 on $164,000 in premium. Disgusting. You can never pay an IUL up like you can pay a whole life insurance policy up, no matter what. It's not possible. It can never happen. They will talk circles around all these different things. But I want to talk about one thing, and I got a minute. Caleb, bear with me if I go 2 minutes over. I think I'm a champion for getting this done in 22 minutes. So this policy, I just want to show one little example, okay? So on this thing, so like here's the deal. At 50, really? Awesome. All right, at 54 years old, he started taking $77K in income per year, okay? And then what happens is at 54, you go down to 75, right, or so. And what happens is at $77,000 a year in income, he pulls the income, but then what happens is there's interest building on that income constantly, right? Because it's the loan. And in retirement, you're not paying that back. So he built up like 11 million after the income and the interest. It might not have, actually, it might have been like 6 million. I don't remember what it was. But here's the deal. What matters here is that the actual cash value available was $454,000 and change at 75 years old. So what happens here on $6 million, if you're doing an index loan, which is what they're all doing, right? Which is like a 4% loan, 4% on 600,000 is what, 240 grand, right? So if you have a down year, everybody's like, oh, it takes like 6 down years in a row for an IUL to go bad. Guess what, guys? If you look at the cost of insurance and all the rider charges, and then you go 1 year, $240,000 on a flat year, what happens with an IUL in a flat year? They say you can't lose money because it's downside protection, because it's a 0% floor, right? If you have all these loans out on it, how does this get paid? You either pay for it out of your pocket, which in retirement, is anybody gonna cut a check for 240 grand to pay for their interest that year? No, it's coming out of here, okay? So what happens here? That 454 turns into what, like 210 now? Then you minus out all the charges, and then guess what? What does that do? That increases the net amount at risk in the policy. That increases the charges in the policy. 2 bad years in retirement, this policy's toast, right? This kid bought this when he was 18, and he thought his whole life was gonna be taken care of. It's so dangerous, so dangerous. So misrepresenting of what's actually gonna be happening. And it's why I'm on a mission to educate people on how this stuff really works. And I look forward to having a friendly debate on the panel, and it'll be fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.